Usually in politics, if you disagree, you debate like tax brackets or zoning laws.
Right, exactly. Just normal stuff.
Yeah. But imagine going to work every day surrounded by armed guards, living in army barracks for over 20 years, and believing that compromising on a single bill means the literal end of your civilization. I mean, that is the reality for Dutch politician Geert Wilders.
It completely changes the definition of what a political debate even is. I mean, it's wild.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a highly charged interview from the Rubin Report featuring Wilders. Now, right up front, we need to be crystal clear. We are looking at intensely polarizing material today. So, we're not endorsing these viewpoints or taking sides. We are simply imparting the ideas and arguments from this interview so you can understand a massive ideological force shaping European politics right now.
And it is a force that is actively rewriting the rules of modern democracy.
Yeah, so he doesn't mince words here. Wilders looks at Western Europe, specifically cities like Brussels, Berlin, London, Paris, and his home country of Holland, and argues they are becoming utterly unrecognizable. He blames this entirely on Islamic immigration, calling it a literal existential threat. He goes as far as warning Europe is on a path to turn into a second Iran.
Yeah, he draws a really stark, provocative contrast to make his point. Like, he compares Holland to Hungary, claiming that in Hungary it's perfectly safe for young girls to walk at night, which he says is now unthinkable in Holland.
Wow, unthinkable.
Right, and to back this up, he points to a lack of independent judiciaries and civil society in Islamic-dominant nations.
Okay, let's unpack this, because he is treating this not like a typical political disagreement, but like two entirely incompatible operating systems trying to run on the same computer.
That is a great way to put it, actually.
Like, if secular Western law is like Mac OS and he views Sharia as Windows, they don't just disagree on the font size. They fundamentally cannot share the same hard drive without wiping each other out.
Well, what's fascinating here is that that is the exact mechanism of his argument. He isn't even looking at Islam merely as a religion in this interview.
Right.
He frames it entirely as a system of total leadership, like a complete ideology of governance and law that inherently cannot coexist with Western secular values.
But, I struggle to see how a politician in modern democracy functions with zero room for compromise.
Yeah,
If you view the other side as a literal existential threat, how do you even show up to work in parliament? You don't live in army barracks for 2 decades just for an abstract theory about operating systems.
You don't know. You have to look at his personal history to understand the unyielding nature of his politics.
Oh, right. His background.
Yeah. As a teenager living in Israel's Jordan Valley, he literally had to run and hide in shelters from terrorists crossing the border. And later, he traveled through several Arab nations.
Which really shaped him, right?
Exactly. He notes that while he met many friendly people, he concluded those nations shared that same restrictive, overarching ideology.
And then you add the assassinations to that worldview. I mean, he talks about the murder of Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh and the intense threats against his friend Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Yes. And the personal cost for Wilders himself is just staggering. His outspoken views resulted in fatwas, which are religious rulings essentially calling for his death.
Wow.
Because of that, he and his wife have spent over 20 years bouncing between safe houses, prison cells, and army barracks just to stay alive.
Which really makes you wonder, if your daily reality is a 20-year death threat, does that just make you a more resolute leader, or does it permanently burn down your ability to even comprehend a compromise?
Well, for Wilders, negotiation isn't a political strategy anymore, it's surrender. And we saw exactly how this plays out mechanically because he actually collapsed the Dutch government over this ideology.
Right, and for those not familiar with parliamentary systems, you don't just vote a single executive out. A government is formed by a coalition of different parties.
Right, it's a group effort.
Yeah, and Wilders was the leader of the biggest party. But because his coalition partners refused to meet his absolute demand to halt Islamic immigration, he basically pulled the plug on the whole coalition. He forced the government to collapse.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he literally walked away from power. He backed up this hardline stance by citing a poll, one he specifically notes came from a leftist university, claiming over 60% of Dutch Muslims believe Sharia law supersedes secular parliament laws.
Wait, really? 60%?
Yeah, that's the number he cited. And because of this, his stated ultimate goal is to de-Islamize the society.
It's incredible to think a politician would rather surrender his own position than yield an inch on a policy.
But in his mind, it's not a policy dispute. He describes the situation as 2 minutes to 12 or even 2 minutes over 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when you believe the clock has already run out on your civilization's survival, you aren't playing the normal political game anymore.
So why does all of this matter to you? Because whether you are following European elections or global geopolitical shifts, understanding these arguments gives you direct insight into the profound ideological fractures driving the continent right now.
Absolutely. You can't understand the headlines until you understand this deep-seated why behind them. It forces us to look at the very foundation of how our institutions operate.
Which leaves you with this to chew on. The entire machinery of democracy is built on the gears of compromise.
Right.
If a major political leader is willing to completely collapse a government over a single ideological red line, how does a democratic society continue to function? If those two operating systems really cannot run on the same machine, well, what actually happens when you are forced to reboot?